Well, anticipation growing for a U.S. trade deal with the European Union.
Reports say it would include 15% tariffs on European exports to America in an agreement mirroring the one struck with Japan. President Donald Trump says negotiations are serious, telling Europe it could enjoy lower duties if it opens up its market to the U.S. But reports say any agreement is unlikely to exempt Europe from Trump's 50% tariffs on steel.
A talk of an imminent deal with Europe comes after the U.S. concluded trade pacts with the U.K., with Vietnam, the Philippines, Indonesia, and Japan. Mr. Trump says negotiators are finalizing a deal with China and adds a slew of other countries will face a range of duties.
You have so many countries, you can't negotiate deals with everyone, so we'll have a straight, simple tariff of anywhere between 15 and 50%. A couple we have 15 because we haven't been getting along with those countries too well, so we just say, let's pay 50, and that's the way it is.
So what can we expect from a U.S. trade deal with Europe, as well as other developments in Trump's tariff war with the world? Let's speak with Jayant Menon. He's visiting senior fellow, Regional Economic Studies program at the ISEAS Yusof Ishak Institute. Jayant, thank you so much for talking to us on the show this morning. So we know, what Trump has said. We know what Peter Navarro and we know what the White House are saying, that only Trump can announce a EU trade deal. Your sense of how close we are exactly to a deal, and are there any remaining sticking points?
I think we are probably close to an announcement of a deal between the US and the EU. There is now mounting pressure to sign a deal after the one with Japan in particular, because these countries compete in the US market for similar sort of product categories like autos and so on. So there is a lot of pressure, I think, that will bring forward a deal. The question is what happens after that. We'll have to look at the details. We know that Trump is very keen on tariffs and using them in a very discretionary manner. So there's a sectoral tariffs, which he can impose at any time or reduce at any time. So the deal is the first step, even if we get it. It's not the end of the road as far as trade policy between the two countries are concerned.
Jay, and just to follow up on a point that you made about the deal with Japan, how significant was this recent U.S.-Japan trade deal in shaping Brussels' approach to Washington?
I think it had a big impact. Unlike most other countries, including Japan, the EU and China are the two blocs that can actually threaten retaliation in a sort of significant way. The US is aware of that, and the EU has been preparing a fallback position of retaliatory tariffs, which will hurt, the US and, in fact, everyone else. So I think the signing of the Japan agreement did create a new incentive to try and do this deal, but things are very unpredictable with this administration, so we don't know what will happen. Yeah.
Jay, and it's quite interesting that President Trump seems to have overcome his disdain for blocs. I mean, he's always preferred bilateral agreements. But there are two things I want to ask you about, two sectors related, and one is the automakers, and the other is steel. We know the U.S. car makers are not happy about what Japanese automakers are going to be paying. 15% they feel is disadvantageous to them. At the same time, we are hearing that those steel tariffs of 50% are going to stay, again, possibly disadvantageous for American car makers who need the steel. So can you kind of take us through the strategic thinking here, for Donald Trump, and the kind of pressure he must be, facing from the likes of GM, who just reported $1 billion drop in profits?
Yes, so I think he is responding to these pressures at home. But I think the point you made earlier is an important one, which is it's really all about relativities. So, European exporters are concerned about what Japanese auto exporters are facing in the U.S. market. So, there's talk now of the rate coming down in total to 15 as well, which will put them on par with their Japanese competitors. All that will happen really then is that U.S. consumers will pay higher prices, and domestic producers may have a bit of an edge. GM might actually benefit slightly by this tariff on their foreign competitors. But the steel is a bit more tricky. I mean, it's much higher, and it's designed again to protect domestic production. And some kind of idea that there could be reshoring, bringing back, investment into the U.S. market. I think, at the moment, this is the only selective component of Trump's tariff policy, the sectoral tariffs. Let's see if it brings back that much investment. I'm not too sure about that. There's mixed results internationally about how well these types of tariffs work in bringing back investments into the home country.
Jayant, there are also reports that the EU could still retaliate if Donald Trump tried to push further or followed through on his threat to raise the reciprocal duties to 30% from August. There is talk about activating this anti-coercion instrument, ACI, so-called trade bazooka. It's never been used before. What does that entail, and what does it signal about the EU's evolving approach to trade diplomacy?
Yeah, so the ACI, the anti-coercion instrument, is their ultimate weapon. It will hopefully not be used, but if it were to be used, it would, for instance, prevent U.S. firms from participating in public tenders. This could be a major, factor negatively impacting U.S. firms. And there's a host of other restrictions on imports and exports as well that will come into play. So I don't think this will happen. I certainly hope they won't. There's also intellectual property protections that are critical that might be affected. So I don't think we'll have to face that possibility, and hopefully good sense will prevail before we get that far. I think the real concern right now is that, if Navarro and others are not too happy with what's being offered and they push back to the default 30% rate, then the EU will retaliate with similar or higher tariffs rather than use the ACI. That's not a good outcome either, but that's a more likely outcome. The ACI is the last fallback option, and they might keep their ammunition dry for what might happen in the future. This is an evolving saga, and I think everyone recognizes, the trade negotiators recognize that they can't play all their cards immediately, because this is a highly unpredictable U.S. administration.
All right, Jay, I appreciate your time this morning. Jayant Menon there, visiting Senior Fellow, Regional Economic Studies Program at the ISEAS Yusof Ishak Institute. Thanks for your time.